Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kingdom Keepers podcast. I am your host, Liz, and with me today I have Taryn.
Hi.
Today we are going to discuss the history of the Sherman Brothers, their relationship with Walt, and their contributions to the Disney Company. But first, we're going to go and give some updates on our lives in our Carousel of Progress and discuss some Disney news of the week. Taryn, you have an exciting update to share.
Yeah, so time is an illusion. So I forget. No, it was last week, right?
Yeah, it was like, so
Yes,
as
last
of
week.
time of recording, it was last week.
Got to stay at the Grand Floridian with my grandparents, and we had a little Disney staycation. It was so nice. The Grand Floridian is very nice, although it's not my favorite resort. It's very nice. I got to have lunch by the pool, got to go to the spa for the first time in my life, which was a pleasant experience. Whatever chairs they have in that little lobby area when you go into like the women's lounge, I want in my house. Like everything was so nice. It was just great to see them. It's been a long time.
Yeah, and also you went to Disney Springs as a guest and you bought me the Donald Duck popcorn bucket. So I am very excited for that.
Yes.
Once I receive him, I will be posting pictures of him on the story. My son.
I was telling Liz that Donald is now her version of Chewie. Now she knows how it feels to have a son.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys haven't seen the popcorn bucket that they released for Donald's birthday, isn't he like 70? Is it his 70th birthday? Um
70 to 90 is a long gap.
Is it 90? Oh gosh. My son, he's so old.
It is 90.
Well, happy 90th birthday, Donald. Oh, fun quiz question. Do you know what Donald's middle name is?
They had this at the railway trivia questions. I don't remember.
It is Fauntleroy.
Oh yeah.
Yep, Donald
That's
Fauntleroy Duck. But anyway, happy 90th birthday, Donald. I can't wait to have the popcorn bucket in my house. Um, but also like my big news is
say
that I
though.
am
His lid is still broken.
his lid is still broken. Oh no. I'll fix it. It'll be fine. But my big news is that I am done with musical for this season. Um, I might be doing one later in the fall. It just kind of depends on how timing and everything goes, but I'm done for this season, so I actually have a free summer, and by free summer, I mean a summer full of things that aren't musical but still busy anyway. Um, but I am just so excited to be done because it is tiring and taxing doing a musical and also working a full-time job since musicals are not my full-time job yet, which totally fine. We're putting in the universe. It'll be fine. We'll get there. Um, but I mean, I do miss it. This is the first weekend that I've had where I wasn't at the theater, and I'm missing my friends from the theater that I basically saw every day for 3 months. But we did so good. It was such a good experience, such a fun musical to do. We did the Jimmy Buffett Escape to Margaritaville. If you haven't been caught up on some of our episodes that I mentioned it in, but yeah, it was fun. I'm glad it's over. I am sad it's over, but I'm glad to be back on our normal recording schedule, at least somewhat normal. We should be releasing episodes about every 2 weeks again. So at least that's how it's scheduled. You know how life goes. But with that, I'm gonna throw it over to our sponsor and we're gonna get a little word from them.
Introducing the magical world of Disney like you've never experienced it before. Are you dreaming of a fairy tale vacation filled with enchanting adventures and unforgettable memories? Look no further than Twinning Around the World, your trusted Disney travel expert. At Twinning Around the World, I specialize in turning your Disney dreams into reality. Whether you're planning a family getaway, a romantic escape, or a friend's adventure. I'm here to make it all happen seamlessly.
Why should you choose Twinning Around the World? Exclusive Disney insights. Jason lives and breathes Disney magic. He's also considered an expert in all things Disney. From park secrets to character meet and greets, he's got the inside scoop to make your trip truly extraordinary. Customized itineraries. Not a single Disney vacation is the same, and neither should your trip itinerary. Jason can tailor each vacation to your preferences and budget, ensuring every moment is pure pixie dust. Stress-free planning. Leave the details to him. He handles reservations, dining, and more, so you can focus on creating enchanting memories with your loved ones. Cost saving. He knows how to maximize your value while minimizing your costs in order to get the most out of your Disney experience without breaking the bank. Personalized service. Jason prides himself on providing top-notch, personalized service. You're not just a client to him, you're a cherished member of our Disney family.
Ready to embark on your Disney adventure? Contact us today at twinningaroundtheworld.com to start planning your dream vacation. Let's make your Disney dreams come true, one magical moment at a time.
This week in Disney news, a new talking Doug walk-around character has debuted at Disney's Animal Kingdom this week. The beloved character from Up has previously met with guests alongside his friend Russell, but now with upgraded technology, and so he just walks around and verbally interacts with guests now. Kind of like if you think about like the Kylo Ren or Stormtroopers, they have like a couple of catchphrases it seems like. Um, so he's walking around interacting with guests. Some of the videos I've seen are so cute. So I am excited to eventually see this character, hopefully.
I had no idea that was the thing. I'm so excited. I'm hopefully going to Animal Kingdom with my friends on Tuesday, so hopefully I'll see him. And I may, well, hopefully, does he walk around with Kevin? Or is he just on his own?
From the videos I've seen, he was on his own. Like he had a character attendant. For those of you who don't know, that's just a cast member that walks around with costumed characters to make sure that guests are interacting with them appropriately and making sure that they stay on schedule because obviously the person in the costume really doesn't have a concept of time or anything. So, but from what I could see, it was just Doug. But I honestly, I think that they've done a wonderful job with the up characters in the park. I'm actually kind of sad that the Central Americas or like Southern Tropical America section isn't going to include the Up House on in Paradise Falls, but you know, that's just me. So,
Yeah. I wish they would have that. That would be really cool.
just give those characters and meet and greets a home, especially since they do incorporate the wilderness explorers and Russell and Kevin and now Doug into the park so well. It really does just fit so well. So, I mean, maybe they'll listen and maybe they'll just put it in there for me.
Only one can dream. Disney's new drone show, Dreams That Soar, premiered on May 24th at Disney Springs. This is a 9-minute show of the water featuring many characters that fly or dreamt of flying. Shows will take place daily at 9 p.m. and 10:45 p.m. until September 2nd. So I worked that day. It was actually the day that I checked out the Grand Floridian. So it was already a chaotic day. I had all my stuff. I had this big hat. I had Donald. I had like 2 bags. It was chaotic going into work. So I just knew this is gonna be great. So the first part of my shift was fine, and like it was slow and everything. But after my break, good flippin' lord, if you listeners have seen the videos of the crowds at Disney Springs on May 24th, just know they were real and they were terrifying. It was busier than Christmas. It was absolutely insane. I love working there, but like Jesus, like yeah, it was
I
rough.
I can imagine because I mean, anytime they bring kind of a new show or anything, it's just absolutely bonkers. I mean, I I worked in Magic Kingdom for 4th of July. I was working that night where and Magic Kingdom and Epcot were the only two parks doing fireworks shows for the 4th of July. And so Magic Kingdom was absolutely packed. But we also did have a DJ on the Tomorrowland stage, so that made my job fun because I was working Carousel of Progress. Ain't nobody coming in that baby during the fireworks. But the rest of the day was absolutely monstrous. I can't imagine. And also, this is a 9-minute drone show. For the people who are there who are locals just wanting to be there because it's the first day, what are you doing? Go home. Come
I
see it
know.
later. It's a
Like
9-minute show.
it looked so I had to close down one of the cards by Once Upon a Toy, and I could see it a little bit, but it seemed very cool. I do want to like see it on hopefully sometime when it's not absolutely crowded.
Yeah, no, the videos look absolutely incredible of it. I mean, I really think that we could benefit from drone shows. I think it would be really cool to have a Galaxy's Edge specific drone show or keep Animal Kingdom open later because you have a whole land that you bragged about being so cool at night and now you're not keeping it open later than 8 p.m. But keep it open later, have a drone show. The animals are already in bed. The noise of the drones isn't going to affect them that much like it would fireworks. Like, animals are going Betty bye. Give us a fun little nighttime spectacular. I mean, if the music for the show during Christmas isn't loud enough to disturb the animals, then the drones aren't going to be.
Yeah, definitely. That would be really cool.
Yeah, so I think Animal Kingdom especially would really benefit from drone shows being introduced. So I'm glad that they're introducing it in Disney Springs because then it's not a paid experience that you have to go to. They're getting everyone's opinions, not just people who are paying to go into the parks. I mean, a lot of the people there are already paying to go into the parks or they're annual pass holders, but not all of them are. So I think that getting this feedback without being with it being in Springs and Springs not necessarily being a paid experience, I think that this is them gearing up for maybe introducing it into the parks, and I'm hoping that it's Animal Kingdom. And that's it for the Disney news of the week. Today's topic is the history of the Sherman Brothers. So basically, Richard Sherman passed away earlier this week. Probably what, 2 days ago since recording about? I think it was Saturday night he
What's
passed
today?
away. Today is Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah, Saturday night he passed away. And so, in honor of him and his legacy, we decided to talk about him and his legacy. So, we wanted to talk about the Sherman Brothers' life and their legacy within the Disney company. They had a very significant impact on the early Disney days and even the later Disney days. I mean, some of the songs, they still impact people today. They have transcended generation upon generation. So, but they did most of their work within the early Disney days. There were a couple of sprinkles here and there of them working on other projects in like the early 2000s, but mostly early Disney days because they did work alongside of Walt Disney himself. So even if you don't know them by name, if you don't recognize the name the Sherman Brothers, you definitely have heard their work and their compositions. Most of my information for this episode did come from the documentary The Boys, which you can find on Disney Plus, and I highly recommend like watching it because even though you're going to hear me and Taryn talking about it, it's not the same as seeing them because it's the Sherman brothers talking about their life and also their children talking about their life, and you get to see different aspects and you get to hear the music, and it's amazing. They have their children, friends, coworkers, industry professionals just kind of discussing their impact, and it was very informative, interesting, and emotional. And yes, I did cry. So, with all of that said, Taryn, I just want to kind of, because I did all this research, but and by research I mean I sat down in my bed and I watched a documentary and then I supplemented it with a little bit of Wikipedia research. But I just want to know kind of like your base point of what you already know about the Sherman Brothers, because I know it's not as much as I already knew, and I think that's also because in college I studied music, and actually we did study a little bit of like theme park industry and movie industry music, which these guys obviously had a hand in.
Yeah, so I kind of know who they are. I think that's basically because of Liz, thankfully. Uh, I know they wrote It's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. I know about Feed the Birds through the Once Upon a Time? What?
Once Upon a Dream, maybe it was
That
the
Disney
Disney
one.
100.
Yeah, that short. I knew that was significant from that. And then I know they wrote the Figment song, but I don't know much about their history and stuff with Walt and everything.
Yeah, I find their history kind of like really interesting, and we'll get into it, but the industry at that time, not a lot of movie studios were contracting their composers and songwriters. They were doing like individual hire outs, which is also what we see today. Disney is really one of the only companies that have had like set composer songwriter, especially duos, come in for significant amounts of movies or attraction writing or anything like that. So Disney is very unique in that. You don't see that very often in this industry, and especially at this time frame. So kind of talking about that, we're going to get into it. So Robert Sherman, he was born in 1925, and Richard was born in 1928. They were actually about 2.5 years apart. But Robert never, never, never let Richard forget that Richard was the kid brother. Anytime he kind of refers to Richard, even in the documentary, if you watch it, at the end, like they went to the Broadway opening of Mary Poppins, which is so significant. It was in early 2000s ish. No, late 2000s, early 2010s. Um was when Mary Poppins opened on Broadway, and they both went to the premiere. And Richard came up to Robert and was like, "Hey, bro." And Robert was like, "Hey, kid." And these guys are old at this point. Like um Richard was 95 when he passed away a couple days ago. So this was only maybe a decade earlier or so, a little bit. So they were both in their kind of like 80s. So, but anyway, so they were born to their parents, Albert and Rosa, and from the very beginning, the Sherman brothers were immersed in the arts because his mother was a silent film actress and their father was a songwriter and composer. They actually met doing silent movies because Al, as we'll refer to him because that's mostly how he's referred to in his career, Al was playing like the piano thing for the silent movies. Like he kind of recorded or composed the soundtrack for silent movies. And so they met on set and fell in love and had two boys. And so I think what the most interesting thing about Al is that he was honestly a prominent songwriter at the time. He was writing songs during the Great Depression. He had immigrated from Russia. He's a Russian Jew that immigrated to America in the early 1900s. I think it was 1909, something around that era. And he basically wrote quintessentially American optimism songs for the Great Depression. If you look him up, you'll recognize one or two of his songs, but all of his songs kind of have that, like, when you think of um almost like the music that you'll hear in the Jungle Cruise queue, like the old radio. It's almost like those.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like those sounding songs, like what you think is like quintessentially like kind of like American, like, those upbeat songs that have really weird lyrics sometimes. So like that was the type of music I was writing. But he also has said that his biggest songwriting achievement was convincing his sons to become this songwriting duo that they became. So I think that's really cool that even though he was very prominent back in that era, that he knew that pushing his sons to work together was going to transcend what he was doing at that time. And it ultimately did. So, as most siblings, they did not want to work together initially. Um, Robert went to school for English and English literature. He wanted to become a writer. He was very focused on writing a novel, which he did eventually write. It is called Moose. It's a autobiography, so it's very interesting. I am interested in getting it and reading it, but he did eventually write his novel kind of towards the end. He's also a wonderful painter. Wonderful painter. In the documentary, he shows you some of his paintings. They are beautiful. And so like he's just very creative, but he's also very like keep to himself creative. It's very like personal. Whereas Richard was very sociable, very happy go lucky all the time, wanted to share this with the world. He actually was pursuing music on his own. And Robert was actually also pursuing music on his own when he realized there was something in the industry that he could do. He became a publisher and a producer for musicians, and he eventually started writing music because he was just very good with lyrics with that English background. So eventually they came together and they were actually tasked, like their biggest task after they came together was writing songs for Annette Funicello, who was at that time one of the most famous Mouseketeers from the Mickey Mouse Club. So a lot of the Mouseketeers did kind of pursue careers outside of the Mickey Mouse Club. I mean, look at some of the ones that came from our era, Justin Timberlake, you know, a lot of them pursued the arts or media. So she was like making her own, she was debuting her own music. She was doing some features in movies, things like that. So she actually went on to sing about 15 or more of their songs. And this, one of the last times they did it for her personally, caught the eye of the Disney record company. And they were asked to write a song for her again for an upcoming movie that was being produced by Disney that was featuring Annette. And so they wrote the song, they went into the lot, and they went into the media building and they were like, "We are here to give you our song for Annette." And they're like, "Cool, Walt wants to hear it." And they were like, "The Walt Disney?" They're like, "Yeah, he's just you could just go into his office." And I'm telling you, if that were me, I would be like shaking. I would be physically shaking. And they were kind of describing like they were scared, like the Walt Disney. But they went into Walt's office, and Walt immediately, off topic, just started talking about a movie about twins who were separated, and he just kept talking and talking and talking about it. And then eventually, one of them was like, "Hey, that's not the movie we were asked to write a song about. We were asked to write a song about um horse masters, like four horse masters, which was an equestrian style movie that they were, with a net." And they eventually did sing their song. It was called the Strummin' Song, which was featured in the movie. But Walt was like, "Yeah, that'll do." And then he continued talking about this other movie. And so the Sherman Brothers wrote another song, which I'm sure that you guys all know of. And if you haven't guessed what movie I'm talking about, It's the original Parent Trap, not the Lindsay Lohan one. Right? That was Lindsay Lohan in the other one. Yeah, I'm correct on that.
Yeah. I know which one you're talking
Yeah.
about.
It's the original. So the song that goes like "Let's get together, yeah, yeah, yeah." That one, that's the Sherman Brothers. That was their second kind of score or song for the Disney company. So, Walt was very impressed with the duo and ended up contracting them to the company. And as I discussed earlier, this didn't happen in the industry. So they started just writing songs for Disney. And they produced many, many, many soundtracks and songs for many, many, many movies. I'm not going to name them all, but a couple of very big name ones: Jungle Book, Sword in the Stone, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, The Aristocats, Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and then one not Disney movie, but it kind of gives the same vibe as Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which also became a stage show, kind of like Mary Poppins, which is the next one we're going to be talking about because this is a very big one for them. Walt had the Mary Poppins like novel series. They were like short story chapter type dealios that was written, and he loved the story, and he gave a copy of the book to the Sherman Brothers, and he's like, "Tell me which ones you think would fit well into one movie about this nanny." And so they circled 6 chapters, and they bring it back to Walt, and they have 16 bars of music kind of fitting into those chapters for each one. And Walt pulls out his copy, and he has the same exact chapters circled. So this is when Walt was like, "This is for sure a great relationship. They think like me, and they have the musical talent that I don't. So we're gonna continue this relationship." And so they were playing their songs, and the only one I believe at the time that was complete was Feed the Birds. And Walt just instantly fell in love with this song. He actually would often have the Sherman Brothers just in his office, just not even for business, just to talk. And they would just play Feed the Birds. They would play and sing Feed the Birds for Walt. And most of the time when they were at the end of the work week on Fridays, that's when they hung out in the office with Walt, and they would just play music, hang out with Walt, talk about life. And that's what kind of made their relationship with Walt so unique, because they not only worked for him, but they were also great friends and like great confidants. Like Walt trusted them with his emotions, which he didn't really do that with any of the other people who worked for him. They were always, always, always in Walt's office, or they were in their own office creating music. And so actually, their relationship with Walt was so great that when Walt found out he had cancer and he knew he didn't have much time left, on his last Friday meeting with the boys, he basically said goodbye to them. And when both Richard and Robert were describing their relationship with Walt, I mean, you could tell this relationship was so precious to them. Like, he really did become such a great friend. They both still, like, the documentary I was watching was recorded in 2009, so a significant amount of years had passed since Walt had passed, and they still got very emotional when talking about Walt. So it's so cool. Like,
Yeah.
I could never imagine the difference from being told Walt wants to hear it and being scared to being so excited to go into his office and just show him what they had, because they knew that he was going to be honest, and most of the time he loved what they were doing.
Yeah, that's such like a wholesome relationship to have, and such a nice like through line from like them seeing a play of Mary Poppins and then making a movie about Mary Poppins. It all just like came together so well.
Yeah, cuz I mean, they read through the novels, and then they were like, these are the 6 chapters that we think would make a great movie, and Walt just had the exact same ones. And so they were definitely like a match made in heaven for Walt. Like, he really appreciated their creative process, and he appreciated them as the artists that they were. Walt needed a song for an attraction that they were debuting at the 1964 World's Fair, which was originally called Children of the World. Obviously, this is when maybe their most well-known song, It's a Small World, was created. And then, as Taryn touched on earlier, there was another attraction at the World's Fair that needed a theme song, and that was the Carousel of Progress. And what I really love about the Carousel of Progress's Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow is they actually have a recording of Walt with the Sherman Brothers, and they're all singing Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow during the pre-show. So if you actually like go up to the Carousel of Progress, there are TV screens outside of the entrance doors and everything, and you can see them all just enjoying singing this song for the pre-show. And trust me, I have heard it a million times and it never gets old to me. I mean, I think it's so cool, especially because I have been so immersed in the world of music, like seeing where people got their beginnings, and this was one of the beginnings for the Sherman Brothers when they started writing attraction music. So, I think it's just so special to be able to still see that. Like they recorded it. Like you can see them. They're all three of them there together. So, like I said before, this was just kind of the beginning of them writing attraction music because they also wrote the attraction music for Enchanted Tiki Room, and yes, they wrote the attraction music for um the Figment ride, One Little Spark. They wrote it for the original one, and then there was a period in the middle where that song was not featured, and then people threw a riot, and so they brought it back. So, which actually happened with the Carousel of Progress too. So, because it was originally Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow at the World's Fair, and then General Electric was like, well, we don't want people to think about buying our products tomorrow. We want them to buy them today. So then they got their own songwriter to write The Time Is Now. Then when General Electric dropped their sponsorship, it switched back to Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. So don't mess with success. The Sherman Brothers had it
Wow.
right. So, I mean, the Sherman Brothers were just extremely good at creating earworms, I think. Like, they just created these catchy melodies and lyrics that just get stuck in your head. So, like, Small World, Carousel of Progress, Tiki Room, even Imagination, like, they all will get stuck in your head for days. I don't know how many times I have, like, walked around my house just going, in the tiki 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 room for no reason at all. I didn't go on the attraction recently. I didn't hear it. It's just there.
I mean, I know Kansi is not gonna like me for saying this, but I do get the Figment song stuck in my head.
I love the Figment song.
On that door spark, on that door spark, imagination. I hope we don't get copyrighted for singing this.
We won't because this is a news source, so we won't. Uh, but I mean, with how many works they have, it's not a surprise that the Sherman Brothers just have many, many awards. The most special awards to them were winning Best Score and Best Song for Mary Poppins, and then also they did receive the Medal of Arts from the White House in 2008, which, spoiler alert, was only 4 years before Robert passed away. So I think that was a big moment for them, coming back together. So, I mean, I think that it's great that they were basically nationally recognized for their work. But the Sherman Brothers, even though they were such an amazing songwriting duo, as brothers do, there was animosity between them. They had a very strained relationship. And, they would argue and bicker and that's so normal for siblings, but since they worked together and they worked so closely together and they were together like all the time, it just the tensions grew a lot. In my opinion, after kind of watching this documentary, Robert's demeanor from like listening to his old coworkers and people who had worked with him like within the building, Robert was always kind of, he wasn't shy, but he was just kind of more introverted. And his demeanor was a little darker, more realistic, whereas Richard was nicknamed Mr. Sunshine by people in the Disney studio. Um, and like he was more extroverted. Like I was kind of saying at the beginning, like he was the outgoing one. He wanted to share his art, whereas Robert was taking more to like art for him. And so I think that with these differences, with just being brothers, it just kind of, if I had to work with Jessica 24/7, there would be no peace. No peace on earth. None. Zero. It would be gone. And she would agree with me. She would probably say that she would like throw me down the stairs so I'd break my leg and couldn't come to work or something. Cuz she wouldn't be able to put up with me.
Oh my god.
She's like the Robert and I'm like the Richard, like to be honest.
Yeah, that
To
checks out.
Yeah. It really does. But I really think that these differences, they're different people. They're always going to have differences. But they had very different experiences in their young adult lives. Um, when the US entered World War II, Robert was 17 and he got his parents' permission and he joined the war. And he actually fought in the war. Um, seeing the things that war produces, and he was actually wounded in battle. Some He was shot in the knee, which actually resulted with him walking with a cane for the rest of his life. Richard also joined the army in his lifetime, but he joined the Army Reserve and he directed the band. So he never actually saw battle or like basically like what you would assume you would see with war. I mean, he saw wounded people, but he didn't see it happen. I think there's like a really big difference between that. And so I think with that and also they're like opposite personalities as most siblings will have, that just really kind of dug into where most of their arguments lie. And after Walt died, they became more separated. They both lost a very dear friend, and grief takes many forms. And neither of them really knew how to help one another, and I think that's also kind of where it lies because like when you feel that grief and then the person that you're basically closest to doesn't know how to help you or they're grieving at the same time, it's so hard to come back from that. It's so hard. And to be in that space, like can you imagine like having your friend like pass away who you work so closely with and so well with, and then they just pass away and then you have to go back into that space and continue working? Like
Yeah, that's
I can't imagine how they would have even tried to do that. But when
that's awful.
when Walt died, actually, the Disney company didn't quite know what to do with the Sherman Brothers, so that's when they started going to other companies. I think Paramount produced Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. There were a couple of other non-Disney songs and titles that they wrote for within that time, until they eventually kind of came back to Disney. But there was also just like a lot of personal stuff in their life going on, which neither brother kind of knew how to help with, and so they kind of just drifted apart. Their families drifted apart. In the documentary, the sons of the two brothers, respectively, they had said that when they went to events, they would sit on opposite sides of the theater. They didn't really speak to their cousins for years. And they eventually did come back together, which is why this documentary was made. This documentary was made by sons of either brother, and they wanted this to kind of be like a moment for their dads to reconnect, which they eventually did. So the animosity, I would say, went away, but they didn't necessarily like reconnect. Robert unfortunately lost his wife to cancer, and he moved to London. He did not want to be here anymore. So he moved to London. He loved his life in London. He was actually there when Chitty Chitty Bang Bang opened in London. So I mean, it's a good thing he was there. Life, has its way of working out, but they did, however, work together for Disney for the last time. It's actually their last work together that they're credited on for a movie, and it was the Tigger movie, which I think is so cute because at the beginning when they were working with Walt, they did the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. So songs like The 100 Acre Wood, songs like Happy Little Rain Cloud, like that's what they originally started with Walt, and then they came back for the Tigger movie, which I don't know if you've ever watched the Tigger movie. Have you?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, the story is heartbreaking in that movie.
Is.
But the songs are so
What songs
good.
did they write?
I think all of them for the Tigger movie. If not, then it was like the
All of
main.
them?
I think it was like the main one. It said it in the documentary. I didn't write it down. That's on me. But go watch the documentary and you'll find out. Go do the research like I did. Um,
Okay.
but that was in the early 2000s when the Tigger movie was made. So, like I said, they had received the Medal of Arts, and then they were together for Mary Poppins opening on Broadway, and then Robert passed away in 2012. And now Richard has joined his brother, and so, they probably have reconnected already. So that's, I think, something for us to kind of end on. The Sherman, gosh, I can't even begin to describe the Sherman Brothers' impact on my life. Because Disney music is the music that I grew up with. And show movies like Mary Poppins inspired me to get into musical theater. So, they and also I worked at the Carousel of Progress. So I heard their music every day for 4 months. And I never got tired of it. I think that's the beauty of it. Is that even though it gets stuck in your head and you can, it's a small world, people can complain about it being annoying, but I never grow tired of it. Maybe I'm just weird. But I kind of want to throw it over to you and our listeners. And I just kind of like, because, you didn't know many of the things that the Sherman Brothers had their hands on. I'm sure you didn't know that they wrote the music for Jungle Book and the Aristocats, and things like that. But now knowing that, do you have like a favorite Sherman Brothers song, or were there any like influential songs in your life which the Sherman Brothers coincidentally wrote? Or which one can't you get out of your head
Um,
most of the time?
I touched on it earlier, but the Figment song is one that I really like and kind of sing too. Then, and then, I've always been a Winnie the Pooh fan. I've always loved the movies and everything, so just the fact that they've like written a lot of music for Winnie the Pooh, uh, is really special. I know, I don't know if they did this one, but Pooh's Grand Adventure was a movie that I watched a lot as a kid, so I really like Winnie the Pooh. So
Yeah, I think they were they were talking about how the songwriting process kind of went for them, and they would always get the story first. They they would not start on melody or lyrics until they had the story and they knew the story. And Richard would be at the piano, kind of plunking out a little melody once they got something that they liked. He would just start kind of like spouting out some things, and Robert would be over at the desk writing stuff down. And every once in a while, Robert would just like put his hand up. Richard would pause, and he would shout out something to him. And then that's like how they built it. Robert would just like shout out what he thought maybe a lyric would fit here, and Richard would then eventually go into it, and then they would like go through it one more time, and it was just like concrete at that point. And people have said like they're the people that you could ask to write a song in a lunch hour, and they would have a full song for you. I just think
Yeah,
that's insane. So as
that is insane.
I I think anyone, not even anyone who has just like worked in the music industry or has worked with music, but anyone who has had like to write a poem for school, and just like the amount of time you sit there and you're like, what fits within this like rhythm or tempo or the set of syllables I can use, or like anything like that, like it's difficult. And these guys could just do it. They could just fly through it. Their brains combined, nothing that we've ever seen before. And Alan
Hmm.
Menken was actually in this documentary. And he was so thankful that the Sherman Brothers had set that precedent of contracted artists working, musical artists working for the Walt Disney World Company. Because as we know, Alan Menken made a lot of music for Disney in their Renaissance era. So the Sherman Brothers were kind of his predecessor, if you think about it.
Yeah, that is true.
They influenced the industry so much. And I think one of the things that struck me was when Robert said, I'm not writing kiddie music. I'm writing music for kids. And I want them to learn and to enjoy. And I'm not going to talk down to them, which you in the music, like, they use big words. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, are you kidding? And kids just learn it. I've known how to say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious since I was like 7. So, Higatus Figatus from Sword in the Stone. There's plenty. They didn't shy away. They used whatever language they had available to them, and they didn't talk down to the kids, and I think that's also wonderful. Another thing I want to touch on, just before we kind of wrap it up here, is kind of, I already know that Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow is one of the most influential songs in my life. Actually, when I was graduating high school, so before I worked at Disney, I actually used There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow on my grad cap because Carousel of Progress is still one of my favorite attractions at Disney World, and those words just always encourage me because there's hard times in life and we feel like we're not going to get through them, but if we just remember that there is a great big beautiful tomorrow and that there's something more at the end of whatever we're going through, it I mean, if you really dig into most of their songs, there's such significant meaning behind them. It's a Small World was not originally written to be the jaunty little fun song it was. It was originally a slower song meant to be a sort of prayer for the people of the world to realize that we aren't that different. But listeners, I would like you to put in the Spotify comments if you are a Spotify user. We do have question and answers on there. I would love to hear what your favorite Sherman Brothers song, what influenced you the most, what can't you get out of your head. I think their hand in the company and their influence on the industry itself has been so significant, and I couldn't help but create this episode as sort of a love letter to them. Their lives were so interesting. They are children of 2 Russian immigrants who built the American dream, essentially. They were children of the American dream. And I think that touching on that really is important and showing our appreciation for the legacy that they left behind and the work that they left behind is just so important, so amazing. I want to thank Taryn for recording this episode with me and for all of you out there listening. With that said, that is all for this episode, my friends. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Kingdom Keepers Pod to stay up to date on announcements and future episodes. To participate in our episodes, you can comment on our social media, send us emails to kingdomkeeperspod@gmail.com, or if you're listening on Spotify, answer the question of the week. Don't forget to check out Twinning Around the World Travel for all of your vacation planning needs. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.